Get started. Hello, welcome. This is the Monday 5:30 Mindfulness Meditation half hour. My name is Casey. Great to see you. This is the Memorial Day edition. Um, Hi. Good. The the one of the major benefits of meditating is it changes the relationship that we have with our emotions, and ultimately you decide, you get to determine the relationships you have with all of your emotions, any of your emotions, every emotion you have. It is your responsibility and your responsibility alone, how you wish to interpret, experience, and express the emotions that come and go uh, during your lifetime. Um, and we get to practice noticing patterns, repetitions, different uh, reactions that we have to these emotions as we meditate. We just sit and we watch. There's an acronym called RAIN, which varies depending on um, the source. But Diane Winston, who's a popular Buddhist writer, the acronym for RAIN is recognize, accept, investigate, and non-identify. And in that order, the acronym is RAIN. First, when we sit down to meditate, we find stillness, we stop, we sit down, we start to relax, and we start to look inward, and we notice what we're feeling. We notice the experience that we're having moment by moment, breath by breath. We start to recognize that impermanence as things come and go on an emotional level, mental or psychological level, on a physical level, physiological being a more emotional state. And just recognizing what we're feeling, that's the first step. Accepting is the second step, and that can be difficult, but if we embrace the aspect of impermanence, if we embrace the practice of impermanence, how everything is constantly changing, moment by moment, breath by breath, that makes it much easier to accept however we're feeling. And sometimes the practice is to accept the fact that we don't really feel like we can accept how we're feeling right now. Acceptance of non-acceptance is a form of acceptance. We think to ourselves, oh yeah, I can't deal with this. You think, well, can I accept the fact that I don't feel like I can deal with this right now? And if you can accept that, well, then there's a form of acceptance of non-acceptance, and we can work with that until the experience of the emotion passes, as it inevitably will. Um, and if we're there for that process, the next time the emotion comes around, we'll have dealt with it in a way that serves us. We'll recognize, oh, yeah, I recognize the first step of RAIN. I recognize this emotion. It was here earlier. And now that it's come back again, I can accept it a little bit easier. The acceptance comes a little bit easier because I know that it's not going to stay forever. And it becomes less overwhelming that way. After we practice recognizing and ultimately accepting how we're feeling, then we can start to take a more proactive approach, and that would be the investigation part, where we look deeper into the emotion and we can start to see the effects of the emotion, the effects that the emotions have had on us, the way that we would normally deal with it. When we sit in stillness, we get to observe, oh, here's this emotion. And if I wasn't sitting in stillness, this is what I would do about it. I would try to push it away. I would try to cling to it. I would try to express or suppress the emotion. And in sitting in stillness, that gives us the insight into how we would normally act once an emotion hits us. And uh, within that stillness, we get the option to do nothing. And sometimes that is the hardest option, but more often than not, it is the best option for us. Because taking those few moments to stop, that increases the space between stimulus and response, the stimulus being the emotion, the response being however we deal with it. And if we start to incorporate mindful stillness into the experience, then it's going to change everything, because then we get some more autonomy there, and we're not acting from a reactionary or reflective, just automatic, unconscious um, reaction to these emotions. Instead, we're noticing, we're investigating them and thinking, well, why do I feel that way when I hear that? Or why do I think that when I feel this? Or why do I feel this when I think that? And we're just investigating. And through that, we can start to do the final part of the acronym non-identify, which can be very difficult because if we identify with anything, it's probably how we're feeling. It's very, very easy to identify with how we're feeling, and it can be very difficult to uh, stop that identification, to not identify. To non-identify is to just notice that the emotion is there and not really do anything about it. Just allow it to be there and allow it to go. And by doing that, that's how we start to break some of these cycles. And the non-identification becomes easier because we think, well, that emotion's part of me right now, but it's not a definitive part of who I am. And the more I relax and allow it to come and go, the easier the process is going to be. I don't need to be afraid of the emotion. I don't need to push the emotion away. If it feels good, I don't need to cling to that emotion and go, no, 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 please don't leave. I want to feel good forever. That's unrealistic. Um, it's human nature to try to, feel good and then push away feeling what we deem to be bad, but we need both. I mean, how could we recognize what it's like to feel good without feeling bad? We need all of those emotions. I've spoken about the emotions on a circle and they go around. And the whole point of meditation is to just notice where you are, to orient yourself and think, oh, okay, well, this is part of the circle where I feel anxious. And let me just feel that, because I know through practice that eventually it's going to go away. And then you notice, oh, I'm not anxious anymore. And it's not better or worse than being anxious. You're just not anxious, or you are anxious. And through recognizing, accepting, investigating, and then non-identification, these emotions, our relationship to these emotions change. And that's good because oftentimes we have very unhealthy relationship dynamics with our emotions. And the opportunity is always there for us to change that dynamic, for us to change the relationship that we have with ourselves, with our emotions. Meditation gives us that space, and the space is grown between stimulus and response. That space is mindfulness, the energy of mindfulness. And within that space, we're able to stop, look deeply, recognize, accept, investigate, and non-identify. And within that space is the potential to change everything. Uh, and within that is a lot of understanding and a lot of freedom. I was listening to, there's a collection of seminars called The Great Courses. And this one was taught by Professor Mark Musey. He's a Harvard professor. And the first time it's a 12-hour audio course. And I took it twice and, listening to it. And I went through again, driving to Monterey through some of the sections on dealing with anger and different emotions. And the first time I tried to listen, I couldn't do it because his voice sounds like Tom Bodett from the Motel 6 commercials. I don't know if but we'll leave the light on for you. He sounds just like that. I'm like, is it going to be 12 hours with this guy's voice? And the first time I couldn't do it. But then I thought, well, there's some really good points here. And so I do want to actually listen to it. And so uh, apart from the voice being what I thought to be a little obnoxious, there was some great takeaways there. And listening to some of his points, he was talking about observing emotions. And he said something that I thought was really cool. He said, when you start to observe your emotions in meditation, you can start to recognize the dimensions of the emotion. I thought, ooh, I really like that. The emotional dimensions, the dimensions of an emotion. And in the past, I've spoken about taking emotions and observing them in different ways. It might be a little bit outside of the box, outside of the standard way of how we observe emotions. So, for instance, anxiety. We might know what that feels like, but if we were to say, well, what color is your anxiety? Or if your anxiety was a shape, what shape would it be? If it was a texture, if it was a temperature, would it be really hot or really cold, right? If it was a vibration, a sound, would it be very low and deep, or would it be very high and kind of shrill and, would dogs be able to hear it? And for me, I know that um, going through all of those, my anxiety is like a purple, sharp, rough triangle. It's a high pitched noise, cold. And what's interesting about that is we're attributing various elements and various descriptions to an emotion in ways that we would normally not think of emotions to be like that. And what that does is it allows us to step back and observe our emotions from a more objective and creative standpoint, as opposed to just experiencing them from a completely emotional standpoint, which can be very, very overwhelming and oftentimes very vague. Traumatic experiences and traumatic memories don't operate the same way as other memories, in that they're not thought of in chronological form. Traumatic memories usually don't have a beginning or an end. It's harder to process them. And so they come in clips and phrases, and they come in flashbacks, and they come in, the high point of traumatic re-experience. Your brain really doesn't know the difference. And so when you think of something, your body responds, or rather, your brain may know the difference between real and not real, but trauma affects the body as though it's happening again. And that can be very, very detrimental. And so to step back and think, okay, this is anxiety, and I know how it feels, but where is it? How does it translate into my body? What color is it? What other observations can I make about this that can help me step back and experience it from a different observational standpoint, rather than just the hard hitting emotion at its peak? Because that's often when we pay attention to our emotions, is just at the top, is when they are so overwhelming, where we can't help but notice them, right? And then when they go away, or when they start to subside, then we don't notice them anymore. But in meditation, we can recognize, we can accept, we can investigate, we can non-identify with the entire lifespan or duration of these emotions, however long they last. And time is relative when speaking of emotions. 1 minute in an anxious experience is going to feel much different than 1 minute in a very relaxed and calm experience. It's just different. They just hit differently. They translate differently. But having the tools to notice, observe, recognize, accept, investigate, non-identify, that's what meditation's all about. And we have so many different ways to experience our experience. We have so many different ways to think, well, okay, here's what I would normally do when I think this, and here's how I feel when I think this, but that's okay. I really don't have to do anything. I can wait this out, actually. I can actually wait out this experience. I can be here with the experience. And then all of a sudden, you're not just anxious. You're anxious, sure, but you're mindful as well. You're anxious, but you're mindful that you're anxious. And so there's two different kinds of energies there. There's two different kinds of observational standpoints that we can come from there. Being mindful of an emotion, you're no longer just that emotion. The emotion doesn't overtake you in the same way. It's less overwhelming because we're aware that we're experiencing the emotion. And with that awareness, we can choose how we wish to interpret, how we wish to express or not express. Oftentimes, we don't need to do anything, but we don't know that until we sit still and make ourselves do nothing. That can be the hardest thing, doing nothing. Take an emotion like anger. The Buddha says that hating someone is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. And I like that, because anger can feel like we're being poisoned. There's like a feeling of sick, hot hate in your body. It doesn't feel good. I mean, sometimes anger feels good, but having hatred towards something or somebody, that's a very strong energy. And it can feel like you're being poisoned. There's heat in your body. You feel it in your face. Your face gets flushed. Your blood pressure skyrockets. Your breathing gets shallow. I mean, there's a kind of physiological effect that could be similar to being poisoned. I mean, it's a very, very intense energy. Something came to mind in terms of feeling poisoned by your emotions, and the idea of building a stronger boat, where we can't control the ocean, but we can build a stronger boat. We can fortify ourselves and essentially gain a deeper understanding and a better dynamic there, where when these emotions come, we think, oh yeah, well, this is unpleasant, but I can wait this out. It may feel like I'm being poisoned because it's super, super uncomfortable, but if I breathe and allow the emotion to circulate and not try to hold on to or push it away, I can think, well, what color is it, right? People see red when they get mad. Is that true for you? Like, What color do you see when you're angry? Attributing these different elements, these different descriptions, these different characteristics to these very familiar emotions, familiar on an emotional level, right? Anger can be very familiar on an emotional level, but what color is it? What temperature is it? Right? Stepping back and thinking, well, what other ways can I analyze this emotion to where it's not just on an emotional level? There's many different ways where you can experience your emotions. Meditation teaches us that. Meditation gives us a space to observe in different ways, to recognize, accept, investigate, non-identify. When I was in middle school, I was on the speech team, and one of the things that we had to do was act out scenes from movies or from plays, like a performance, essentially. Two of my friends did a uh, part of the Princess Bride, which is a movie and also a book. And the part was a scene between a villain and the masked hero. And the masked hero said to the villain, all right, I have two cups here. One of these drinks is poisoned. You choose which one, and I'll drink the other one. It was like a duel, right? A matching of wits. And the villain, after, prognosticating which one may or may not have the poison, he finally chose a cup and he drank it. And the masked hero drank his. And the villain died, and the masked hero was fine. And the princess, who the masked hero was trying to rescue, she said to the hero, "Oh, so he drank the poison. That cup actually had the poison in it after all." And the hero said, "Both cups were poisoned. I just spent years building a tolerance to the poison. Both of the cups had the exact same amount of poison in it. I just spent years building a tolerance to the poison." And that's exactly what we do when we meditate. We take these emotions that feel like poison. We take all emotions, but obviously the stronger, more overwhelming ones are the ones that are going to be more difficult to handle. And we're building a tolerance to that, to where the same emotion may come through and hit us, but the way that we deal with it is not the same way. We're building a tolerance, we're building a bigger boat. And even though it may feel like you're being poisoned with anger or with fear or whatever, the tolerance we have to it is going to be stronger because we've sat down and we've sat with it and we've been with it and we've analyzed it from different standpoints. And we've spent time practicing RAIN, recognizing, accepting, investigating, non-identifying. All of that is a practice. It's a process that builds our tolerance. And then all of a sudden, an emotion that might completely overwhelm someone might make someone flip out. It doesn't hit us the same way. It's the same emotion, perhaps, right? Anger. Someone's angry. But if it were to happen to us, we have a completely different interpretation, a completely different experience towards that. And so being able to observe the emotional dimensions, being able to recognize that what we're doing is building a tolerance and strengthening not a defense against these. We could say that we're building a tolerance or increasing our ability to deal with these emotions, essentially. And that means not pushing them away, not holding on to them, just being there for it, allowing them to come and go. And that practice gives us all the space we need. And it is a practice. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes. And I often say it's not easy, but it does get easier. But at times it is easy. At times it is very easy. You find yourself with an emotion that at one point would have overwhelmed you, completely poisoned your day, completely poisoned your experience. And you think, oh, wow, I don't even need to do anything about that. I mean, I understand that it's here, but my tolerance to it has been strengthened so much so. I mean, I almost feel immune to it because your relationship has changed. Your relationship with that particular emotion has changed because we've spent time building the space so we can form different relationships. We can create different connections to these emotions. I mean, that's what meditation does. Our emotions are our responsibility when we experience them. No one else can no one else can change the way that we react if we're mindful, right? Nobody can take it away from us. Nobody can give it to us. If we are mindful and we have that space, then the way we wish to experience our emotions is our own. It is a conscious decision as opposed to an unconscious, um, completely split-second reaction based on pain from the past, which is often how we experience emotions and how we express emotions, right? Many is a time where perhaps we've been angry and we've said or done something that we wish we hadn't have said or done. That's a human thing. And we can sit down and we can notice those times and we can notice the triggering ideas coming up. Thinking, oh, well, I want to say this or I want to do this. But within that stillness, we think, oh, well, I can, but I have another option too, which is to do nothing. And if you wish to say something or you wish to do something, great, do it. At least it was your choice. You're not acting from the past, right? The past is not acting through you. You're present. And maybe you deal with it the same way that you have in the past, or maybe you don't, but the choice is yours and you have that capacity now. You've built that tolerance. You've been able to recognize the different landscapes, the different dimensions, the different ways to experience an emotion. And with that, everything changes. And we get that opportunity every time we sit down to meditate, which is what we're going to do right now. So, last 5 minutes, find a comfortable seated position, relax. And of course, you can always meditate more after or before these meetups, but close your eyes, a few cycles of breath on your own. As you breathe, as you relax, just notice what comes up. Notice your thoughts as they come and go. Notice your emotions as they come and go, any physical sensations as they rise and fall. Mm. Take a deep breath in. Let it go. When you're ready, gently blink your eyes open. That was a quick 5-minute meditation, but whether you're meditating for 5 minutes or 5 hours, or you're in a 5-week meditation retreat, the practice is the same across the board. We sit down, we relax, we breathe, we look inward, and we're there for the experience. And the more gentle and forgiving we are with ourselves, the more we allow that space to grow and allow whatever happens to happen within that space of mindfulness, the easier it becomes, the more tolerance we build, and the more we transform our relationships with our emotions, with ourselves, with the world around us, with the people around us. And that is the power of the practice. And as always, thank you for sharing your practice with me today. See you next week. Enjoy your Memorial Day.